Hey Daniel, what's up, man?
Hey Jarvis, how are you? How are you doing? Good to hear from you.
Oh, it's good to hear from you too, man. How you doing?
I'm doing
One more day,
okay. I've got a
one more day in the clean.
yeah. Yeah, well we're really grateful that you could call. I've got a Zoom room full of um passionate activists, artists, teachers, parents, community members. We got some writers here. And everyone's real eager to talk to you. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to hand it over to Jermaine Smith, who you spoke with about a year ago, and Tamara Bridgewater. They are the leaders of NU Build, Empower Network Uplift, which is the organization here in Ossining. So I'm going to hand it over to them, and you let me know if you can't. Let me know if you can't hear them. Okay.
Okay,
Hello, Jarvis. This is Jermaine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to thank you for joining us again. The very first thing I wanted to do is give you an opportunity, give a platform opportunity for you to share and talk a little bit, not only about your story, about the work that you're doing with That Bird Has My Wings, and just give you this platform to actually speak and share a little bit about you and what's going on.
Oh, I mean, my life is, it's been, I don't know, like 30, 31, 32 years of being in here in a place where I don't belong. And over the years, I've been able to deal with it. And there's always good days and bad days, like, almost everywhere else. I believe I'm in really, really good hands with the legal team that I have now. I hope that I'm still hoping that my book, the second one, That Bird Has My Wings, do more to find its way into inner city communities. I'm not sure if it's doing well in that area, and I'm looking for ideas to do that.
Okay. So, and so that's if that's one of the things that we can really help you with, then we can definitely try to attempt to do that. So that's the kind of thing that would be helpful if you can share that type of information. Like, how can we help spread the story? How can, if one of the things is to get your book into the inner city and have that conversation, like how can we have a team of people here that have read your book, that are eager to hear more from you, and how we can actually be part of a solution for you. So if you can share from that aspect, so things like you just said, to get it into the inner city and to those communities, and anything else you can share from that aspect.
Well, no, I always assume that um, that people people like you and the group and the team we have right there sitting with, we're all looking at each other. Um, that we learn how to do that, by just doing it. I don't think there is an exact plan for something like this. Um, Usually, when you plan something, with the intent of what we're thinking about, it's never going to go out as well as it looks like. So um, how do we plan something like that? How do we give voice to something like that? Uh, I just assume that you guys know a whole lot more about that than I would.
Absolutely. All right. So we will work it on our end to do as much as we can to spread that word and get that story out. Can you share, I guess, the status, the legal status now, where you stand with the work that your legal team is doing, from that perspective, just so everyone's up to date?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Right now, we just wait. Right now, my court's in a federal court
Okay.
here in Richmond. Um, a judge named Gillian. Um, he has all the stuff he needs. We were looking forward to a hearing a couple months ago, but he alerted everyone that he was not going to be that was not going to be necessary for him to have a hearing, and that a decision is on its way. Now no one knows when that can happen.
Right.
We believe it is going to happen fairly soon, but that's all we're waiting for right now is how that turns out.
Right.
I do believe I'm in good hands, and I always try to stay.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I'm going to give an opportunity of people, if you have questions, to ask questions or share anything. I know we have a number of people that are actually out of the country. Here, Jarvis, Germany, from Mexico, that have read your book and inspired by not only the book that you wrote. And so I wanted to give them opportunities for them to ask questions and at least you can hear from them directly. So if anyone has any questions or anything they want to share, please raise your hand and I'll call on you and you can ask your questions or share a little bit with Jarvis since we have this opportunity. And Tamara, I don't know if you have any questions or anything you want to share. I want to also open up to you really quick. But if you guys have questions or anything, please raise your hands and I'll call on you real quick.
Jarvis, hi, it's Tamara Bridgewater from NU Builds. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm happy to be here with all these people on the call that are affected by your writing and that are actively working together to bring awareness out into the community. And that's all because of the book that you wrote. And so I have the amazing opportunity to work with Daniel and Amy and Margaret and Jean Claire to bring a whole educational component into our district school with our students to build awareness about social justice, have them read excerpts from your book, watch the performance and the music that was built around your writing. And I just want to share with you that it's an amazing experience. And the kids that participate in the writing portion, that participate in the dance portion of the workshop, it's really something to see because I don't think they expect all of the connections that happen during the workshop. So I just wanted to share that with you. There's a lot of good energy that's moving around because of your writing. So I just wanted to share that with you.
You know what? You give me a perfect opportunity to say thank you and everyone that are always able to participate in programs like that. I really felt blessed when Daniel gave me an opportunity to say yes to what he was doing with this event. And yeah, this is a good time for me to say thank you to you and everyone else for giving me that opportunity. I look forward to other opportunities that I can work with Daniel and everybody and just see if we can make a difference.
Well, you are. So I wanted to add, my one question to you is, are you still writing? Do you continue to write every day? And is there anything that we should be looking for soon?
I'm still writing. Yes, I'm still writing, but I'm not trying to get published. I'm not really trying to put stuff out there. Only reason why is because it takes a lot of energy to keep it out there and keep it going. I'm looking forward to this decision by this judge. I'm trying to keep myself in a good place, and you would think writing is a good place for it, but I think just being in the moment, and trying to just not to evade these moments that I'm having with this court thing, but just trying to live with that, and things come up, for me to write about. I'm very interested in writing about COVID and what happened to San Quentin. That seems more like a biblical tale than anything else, but I am writing, but not at the pace or with the kind of joy that I look forward to writing with at some point later,
Can I follow up on that? What's the biblical part for what comes up for you with in that sense? Like, why do you use that word to describe?
Say again?
What's the biblical part for you? What comes up for you when you say that it's like a biblical tale? Can you tell us, just get a layer deeper into that for us? I'm curious.
No, you said when I use the word difficult.
Oh, biblical. You said, did you say that? Did I hear you correct?
Biblical. Oh, biblical. Oh, because it was the ground zero of COVID in California. In one prison they had over 3,000 or 4,000 cases. And the way they were treating people in here after it got so bad, they were using spray paint and painting red on the top of your cell door to indicate that you have been, tested positive for COVID. So they didn't have no beds, they didn't have no transportation to send people out to the hospitals. People were dying. I had 3 neighbors who died. When the hazmat people walking around here in hazmat suits, spraying the walls every other day. It just looked like another world. It looked very, horrific. It's the worst thing that I can think of. Revelations talk about. So yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Thank you. Yeah. And then we got it. We have a hand up now.
Thank you. Yes, Mindy, you want to ask your question?
Well, actually, thank you so much, Jarvis, for being here. I just have really more of a comment, a couple of comments. First, my work with Daniel, because I was very blessed to meet him and got to be part of the production here in our town of Got My Wings. And then your writing so inspired me. I was invited to do a guest sermon at the Methodist Church here, and I'm actually not a Methodist, but I quoted from your book and I felt you with me. And I just want you to know that your work and your service has informed my life in a way that feels so important and powerful. And I am so grateful for all that you do and what you stand for. It has been a life change for me to know of your work. And I think of you often and send prayers and thoughts to you, and wanting to work now towards prison reform myself and do everything I can. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I mean, that means a lot to me. Just know that I can, find my, that I can always think about being in someone else's presence at this time.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, so I really thank you for that.
Thank you. Barbara, you had a question or a statement you wanted to share, a comment you wanted to share? Okay. All right. Yeah, and I think a number of people had already mentioned that you have inspired them to really look into doing more work within the prison reform and some of the work that you've led this conversation. I think us included, I think we got heavily involved in Sing Sing Family Collective a little bit more after having a conversation with Daniel and doing the Got My Wings program. We've already had conversations with them, but I think it really moved the needle a lot. So I think you're inspiring a lot of people, not only to join in this conversation, but actually to
You have 60 seconds remaining.
To do that work. I see you have a minute remaining. Do you have any last words, anything you want to share with us, or last comments?
No, I can call you back if you want. I mean, it's just every 15 minutes
I think we all would appreciate that. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Please do.
Okay, let me do that then now.
Okay.
All
right. Okay. Bye. Yep.
Has everyone read the book or excerpts from the book, or no? I see some yes, some no. Yeah.
Is the audio okay? Is it really acceptable? Everyone can hear it? Okay.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Anyone read the other book that he wrote in prison?
You read the memoir, what's the first one, Tamara? It was just the letters We read them, Daniel. We read them at the first thing we had.
Yeah,
It's called Finding Freedom.
Yes.
yeah.
Does it focus more on him finding his path, his Buddhist path? Or I'm just curious.
For that, you would go to David Sheff, the book that came in 2020. I don't know, Julia, if you want to chime in here. Julia works very closely with campaign as well, and someone we're in touch very frequently around this. But yeah, that's what I would say. What would you say, Julia, to learn more about the Buddhist path, his Buddhist path?
I think, yeah, you could read David Sheff's book, and then also just go to the freejarvis.org website, and there's information there. And that also, if you dig around there, there's a lot of Jarvis's writing as well as writing about Jarvis. So there's a wealth of information there, articles that he's written, things that have been written about him, and but Finding Freedom is great. I mean, it's a book of basically short stories of different experiences he's had
Okay.
in San Quentin. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
And please definitely ask questions or share your thoughts or anything you have with Jarvis. This opportunity to speak to him and speak to him directly. So if you do have a comment you want to share.
Link.
Okay. Hi, Jarvis. We have you back now?
Yeah.
All right, great. Yeah, we were just talking. We got Julia here on the call, and we were just talking about your website and some of the things you've been writing. And I guess Barbara, did you want to ask your question?
Oh no, well, I was just wondering if there was some writing about the process of finding the Tibetan Buddhist path and how that evolved for you, if that's in any of your writing.
I didn't get
The question is, how can people learn more about your path to Buddhism? Have you yourself written about that, and where can people learn more about your path to finding Buddhism?
I think I've written many articles on that point, but I think Finding Freedom, my first book, really it felt like it took me on that journey about how did I find Buddhism, what was the important lessons I learned, and how to just connect with who I am as a human being, because one of the first things that I had to ask myself was how can I relate to being a human being in a place like this? So I began writing stories about that. And I think that was just those few steps of looking at Buddhism as a way of expressing myself. But then there's the other Buddhists that's more rigid. I think that would probably be the more committed to the practice of Buddhism. And that's just what that is. It's a practice. It's something that I'm learning from every single day. But the first steps I took, I think I really described them in Finding Freedom.
Yeah, I have a spiritual teacher who had a quote that said, "Everyone thinks that sadhana or your spiritual journey gets easier as you go along," and she said, "It doesn't. It gets harder, but it gets better."
Thank you for sharing that.
It does. It gets for me, just my own experience.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
By better, I've always thought that meant to find more and more things you can appreciate about who you are as a human being and what you can contribute as a human being. The more you discover the things you can do from wherever you are, it really gives us that kind of energy, the kind of energy that wants us to be more active and involved in. And it's hard. A lot of the stuff, I think for me, a lot of the stuff I do, I do it by a practice. I don't do it because it's a natural thing for me to look at all the time. But the more I can stay close to my practice, the more I can just feel like I'm a part of my practice and everything I do, I feel a lot better. It makes me feel a lot better. But, to get better, you have to go through some rough stuff,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tenzin, you want to ask your question or share your thoughts?
Yes, hello Jarvis. This is Tenzin from Germany, Berlin. And I'm a Buddhist monk. I read your book, Finding Freedom. And I'm befriended with the German publisher who published your book in German language. And she asked me to write something like a preface. And what I want to share with you, I was deeply moved and touched by your book because you used your situation and then the Buddhism to find a deep level of humanity and honesty. And in my life, I had only 2 books where I cried, and one of the books was yours. So thank you for writing it. And I go myself to prison since 2000. I was in youth prison, adult prison. And so currently I'm again in a prison, and I give to one of the prisoners he's just 23 years old. So I gave him your book. He was very happy to read it. And so he will continue to give the book to other prisoners. And in the future, I will share more of your books in the prison. So I wanted just to share this with you and thank you for your honesty and the humanity and what you have found. And of course, I wish you from the depth of my heart that you really find the outside freedom outside of the prison, that you can get out of the prison as quick as possible. So thank you so much.
Well, man, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me, man. I mean, the more and more, I get so motivated when I hear things like this. For me, I have, just like I know it is for so many people outside the prison, you got to find motivation to get to where you want to go. It's not like everyone wakes up and just want to do yoga. No matter how good it is for us to do it, we just don't run to it, But once we're in it, it's where we want to be, So being able to hear these things from you guys is just motivating me more and more.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that, Tenzin. That inspires, and I think it speaks to some of the work that's really needed. Kimmy, I don't know if you had a question. I saw you unmuted. I saw you unmuted for a sec. If you wanted to share, no.
I didn't hear you.
We had another community member that wanted to ask a question. I just wanted to double check. So she's going to ask a question now or share her thoughts.
Okay. So hi, my name is Kimmy Pogue, and I am a founder of a nonprofit organization called Hit a Home Run Against Drugs in memory of my father. And hearing you speak, it's given me especially motivation on today. I do what I do in memory of my father. It was a different situation, but he was in prison. He had suffered from drug abuse, which entered him in prison. But he, just listening to you and talking, hearing other people talk, I don't know. I just can't find the words right now, but it's like there's so many feelings to it because you're inspiring me, right? My father went through a lot of trauma, food insecurities, theft, all this stuff. And giving, the group of people that's on this call has helped me help myself in my healing of losing my dad. He was clean 10 years before he died of stomach cancer. And today, it's the first day of spring, right? Everyone's happy, but my father was on my mind heavy today because my niece had passed away. She was 4 years old in a fire, and my father tried to save her, and couldn't save her. And he expressed a lot of his trauma and his hurt through art, through drawing, and just listening to you sharing your stories and your experiences through writing, which is a form of art. Just it makes me feel. Again, I haven't written your book. There's so many things I want to say to you, but it's just my mind is just all over the place right now. But thank you for digging into your faith and staying motivated. And I pray that everything works out in the best. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's just, for me, it's really, really.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
The best part of my intentions come out of conversations like this, where you just know that you discover all the reasons why you're here, at this time in this moment, and just finding your way to these kinds of talks and these kinds of meetings and these kinds of meeting places is where I think the best ideas come from. So I really hope that talking like this just allows me to just figure out what else can we do.
Barbara, do you have another question or?
No, I just want to say to Jarvis, thank you for being and for touching us so deeply.
Thank you, too. Thank you.
And Jarvis, I know you mentioned earlier that you're still writing, but not with the intent of publishing. I think as you're hearing people talk about the books that they already read and the work that you've been publishing already, I think you're inspiring a lot of people. So we're hoping that even if you don't publish it in a commercial format, that you are sharing those writings with us and you continue to inspire as many people as possible, because I think your writing is touching an entire generation and beyond of people, and getting people involved in this conversation beyond they would normally the scope of the work they would normally do. So I think if you're not publishing, that you'll at least share those writings with us. And I'm hoping that you can take, if nothing else away from this, is that your work is touching thousands, and please continue to write and continue to share. We'll continue to share from our end. And not that we're closing out, but I just wanted to share that that sentiment from my perspective. Serena, you have a question, or you want to share your thoughts?
I just wanted to share with Jarvis too, that through his writings and through the program with the schools, I'm a teacher at Sleepy Hollow High School, which is a town next to Ossining in New York. And we've been fortunate enough to be connected to do the school program next year. I know that your writings and your story are going to touch the next generation and teach valuable lessons through firsthand experience. And, my students have read The Other Wes Moore, and, they're taken in by real life stories and they're interested in it and they're not bored. I mean, today my students were like, wow, I really like the story and I'm not even falling asleep. It's real experience and it resonates with them. So recognize that what you're writing, both published and unpublished, if you're willing to share it with us as English teachers, as social studies teachers, these are primary sources and documents. And I sound like, somewhat of a nerd here, but your story speaks volumes to students, to teenagers at formidable points of their lives, where they really take what you say to heart and think about it and speak back and have questions for you and would love to speak with you, whether it's orally or in writing, which are almost better ways of us to teach them than the traditional ways that my generation, your generation have grown up. But don't doubt that what you're doing, as tiring as it may be, is impacting people from the age of 14. You know, I'm 50 something years old and I'm drawn in. My husband just walked in the room and is like, what's going on? And I'm explaining to him what's going on. He's like, wow, that's pretty impressive. And that's going to be great for your students because he also teaches in my high school. So it's this ripple effect. And I'm babbling a little bit, but I want you to realize that your story has power and it crosses
You have
age and it
60 seconds
crosses
remaining.
race and it crosses economics. So thank you for your willingness to share.
A big hug, big hug. Thank you.
Thank you. And can he call back again, Daniel?
Jarvis, do we have one more call from you after we get cut off? Or
Let me see. Well, I'll call you, and then if they tell me I have to hang up, I'll just hang up then. How about that?
absolutely, that's a
That's
deal.
great.
All right, do that.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll hear from you.
And Daniel and Julia, I wanted to share a link to the Amazon page that has a couple of his books. I wanted to make sure that, I don't know if you want me to share that one, if you want me to share a different, I don't know if you guys had a different link that was directly to, should just directly to his page, or is that Amazon link fine? It has the complete collection.
I just ordered one of his books from Amazon while we were on the call and it listed both books.
Yeah.
So
Right.
from
So
those you can get them right now.
So that's the link that has the books on there. Okay.
Jermaine, can we discuss about you bringing this to the middle school and high school kids at the RAB?
Sure. Yeah, Tamara's been working closely with Daniel, and she's already done it at Bethany and with Amy and Margaret with Best Just Ballet. So there's a whole dance component and writing component that we've organized to that. So yeah, we absolutely.
So, Kimmy, the program runs through the school, and so we're trying to connect with all of the teachers in the school. So the kids being part of your after-school program, they would have to register, during the school time to visit. I don't know, we can talk about if there's a big enough group to do it separately, but I think that bringing them all together would be
Yes,
great.
that's
Yeah,
perfect.
and they have transportation and all of that. Like the school has opened up to that, doing the transportation and stuff. So we can
He's back now.
and that'll be like in the fall, like
Hello,
in
hey
the
Jarvis.
fall of 2022.
Hey, all right.
All right,
We had a couple of hands, more questions, and thank you so much for your persistence and calling us back and keeping us on the line with you. Here's
Tamara's next.
Yeah.
yes,
So Jarvis, I just wanted to say, I was kind of like, I wanted to agree with Serena, and you were kind of hitting exactly what I wanted to say. Like you're writing, you're writing to heal yourself, and then you're putting it out into the world, and how many people it's affecting, that they're reading it, and that even all the way in Germany, like for, a young man who's in prison, for him to read it and be affected by it, I always look at the energy of things and how one thing connects to the next thing and connects, so your start has kind of spider webbed out and touched a lot of people in different places. And just what Jermaine said, like keep writing, because what you're, sharing out has a bigger effect and a bigger mission. It's not just about you writing, just writing. It's about the connection with the people who are reading what you're writing. So thank you.
And it's always been my connection to the outside world, when I'm writing. I feel like I'm extending whatever I'm thinking out beyond the gates of prison. And hopefully, if I'm lucky, I can get to where my vision would have it. My vision would probably have it at a school meeting or at a graduation, or at a conference on hate or injustice, whatever. I think about how do I participate in these programs that I believe that I can honestly say, I matter.
Right.
And that's been a hard thing for me to know that I do. But I mean, you can always know that you do make a difference, but it's something else when you are really, really called to do it based on my own personal experiences. Like someone said, one of you guys said, it's the real experience that I have. And I guess, you take it out of a book and you put it in some young person's hand. This is what happens when you do this, or, and they have this sense of knowing that, you're listening. These are all things that I've learned by being in prison, but at the same time, I understand how beneficial they are as I communicate to younger people or just people over the last, 10, 15 years.
One of the things we did in the last performance, Jarvis, is we got to know some folks from some organizations out here in New York, Rehabilitations of the Arts, and release aging people from prison. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is just about those connections. You were just talking to, like, what are some of the ways that you feel like we could continue to make connections, not only across different, people that have been incarcerated, but just connections across differences, and like how do you see that work taking shape in your own experience, and how might you try to continue making connections once you get out?
Well, I'm not exactly sure, but I think just by knowing where knowing people who holds my own interest, and I have their interest, we somehow tend to meet up at the same place. I tell a lot of these guys in here that if you hang out with the association you want to be with, then you gotta pretty much get what that is. So my whole thing is hanging out with a lot of young people who are incarcerated, and those people who have been paroled, and to work with juvenile work somehow, like me and you talked about, somehow, how do we fit within the juvenile system? What do we bring to that makes a difference? For me, I think someone else mentioned this already too, that there is no one plan fits all, That's why I think teachers have it so hard, because they're talking, they're communicating to 25 people, 30 people. I don't know how many they keep in classrooms these days, but every one of those people are individual. And one of the things I've learned about being in prison, that individuality shows itself really, really well. So, how do we strengthen our allies and stay connected? I think it goes back to, how do we find the people who holds our same passion, our same commitment. And I try to stay close to those people, because I think, that's the kind of company I want to keep. That's where I want to keep.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
That's where I want to keep my mind focused on. So, yeah, I'm not sure if I answered the question right, but I just think that, if I hang out with Daniel, this is what I get out of Daniel. I get these ideas, these great ideas about how we can make a difference. And I think there's a lot of people out there that I will find my way to.
Jean Claire, sorry, I jumped the line there a little bit. Sorry about that. Your hand up.
That's okay. Jarvis, it's Jean Claire Cotnor. I worked with Daniel and Amy and Tamara when we did the writing workshop back in the fall, back in October. And one of the things that I felt most inspirational with the students was when you basically said to them that you write for yourself and you write your thoughts and you don't have to share them with anybody, but that writing was a way of healing. And I participated with the students when I wrote, and then I went to share out and I got all choked up with what I had written about. And I want you to know that I've kept writing. I was never a big journaler, but because of that experience and working with those students, I want you to know that I've kept it up. And it's really helped me sort of heal some of the childhood traumas that I've been carrying around for, I don't know, 50 or so years. So I want to thank you for that. And I look forward to being able to work with Daniel and Tamara and Amy again in this workshop, reaching out to more students. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I really want to, I also want to just say that, as much as I can, and I feel like I can contribute a lot, I really, really would love to be continue to be a part of this group and a part of us coming together, because I think it's important, and I really want to give as much time as I can to these issues. Daniel knows pretty much how committed I am to this. If for no other reason, hanging out with a bunch of cool guys, So I would trust me on this. I really want to stay connected to whatever we come out of on this.
Do you have an open invite? So I know you connect with Daniel. So anytime you want to, tomorrow, next day, anytime you want to have a venue to speak or you want to join, you have an open invite to join. So we don't need that much of a notice. We can put our agendas to a side. So if you want an opportunity to speak, we're here. So that's the least that we can do. One question I have is, you've inspired so many people outside with the work that you're doing. Do you have the opportunity to have conversations with people who are incarcerated there or in other prisons, either having them have discussions with you directly about your book, or have they had any opportunities to read your book? And from that perspective, it has been used as a tool within the system there?
I've had more opportunities to people who had been incarcerated, who's not, who's done their time and who's now out of prison, and they might have been out 2 or 3 years. I've had a lot of little conversations with people, and I tell you, I learned a lot from that, because they show me the little small things that I can really relate to on what they have to get used to readjust. Real tiny small things that, that when I think about it, it makes a big difference, So I gather as much information as I can from that experience, because how we experience our lives when we get out of here in that first 3 months is really important. I never thought it was as important as I'm starting to learn that it is, So that's where I tend to learn a lot from, is more from people who's been let out of prison.
And again, if anyone have any questions, raise your hands. For me, from your perspective, I'm curious also what inspires you where do you get inspiration from not just from outside of like the work that's being done, but some of the things that you're reading that's really inspiring some of the stuff that you're doing. I'm just curious. Tenzin shared earlier that there's two books that made him cry. One was yours, and then he shared the other book. But those type of draws, like what inspires you to do some of the, besides the situation, what inspires you to really work with in this format?
Well, a lot of things I write, I in my mind, I see myself writing it to myself. I'm looking at what comes up for me when I say this, and what doesn't seem right if I'm not saying what I want to say,
Right.
You tend to have this sort of like agreement with who you are and who you are as a writer, and how those two people come together to write with something that that makes a difference in what you want to look at and what you want to read about. And then at some point, I'm either convinced by someone that to share this, or I end up getting it published. But my intent has never really, really been to write something, to publish something. I tend to, like you guys said earlier, I tend to more share it with people.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
This
call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And then it just ends up being published somewhere, But I'm really inspired by me trying to tell the truth to me, if that makes sense.
Yes. No, it makes absolute sense, and thank you for sharing that. And please continue to share. Go ahead, Daniel. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, should we wrap up? It sounds like we're going to get cut off this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's getting ready to come down and cut us off.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
Hey, man, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for letting me hear some voices. And thank you for all the questions.
Thank you.
You have a full room of
stay with me.
a full room of smiles coming at you.
You guys, hey, man, I'm smiling back. Trust me.
Okay.
Trust me, I'm smiling back at all you guys.
Take good care.
Thank you.
Blessings.
All right.
Good night, Jarvis.
you.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Daniel, first of all, thank you for having him join us again. He's always inspiring, and I always appreciate having him on. So hopefully we can continue to spread his word and get the word out about some of the stuff that's going on in general with prisons. And I know the Sing Sing Family Collective is doing a lot of that, but specifically his story. But thank you all for joining. I don't know if anyone has anything they want to share, comments they want to share.
This is Kimmy. I didn't get to read any of his books, but I'm excited about reading them. And it was very inspiring. Thank you for having him on.
Yes. So I have one here, Kimmy.
Should we do a reading group? Should we do like how we do NU Builds dialogue so that we can kind of talk through it together? Let's try and schedule that out and see if we can do that. Maybe we'll look at the calendar and come back with some dates and share that in an email.
Share a little bit about that for those that are new to our call.
So yes, I'm sorry. So we do NU Builds dialogue, and we've done it with as a workshop for students in the school, where we picked books and then we read through the books and asked them questions as we were reading, and then the students had a project that was due at the end. We've also done what was the other thing that we did? The screenings for documentaries, and we have a running list of books that we all read and we add to it. So if there's a book that that you've read and that you think would be beneficial to other people, you can add to the what is a Google Excel sheet?
Google Doc. Yeah, it's a Google Doc that I share.
Yeah, we share on that. We talk about the documentaries we watch. So that's part of the NU Builds dialogue, is to have conversations about books and about movies, the documentaries, about things that are happening, and just, kind of connect in a way that is not so technologically based, I guess, but it is like, because it's on Zoom, but it's, you know, we're having talks, and, you know, we're sharing our feelings and emotions and things like that, and our perspectives. Everybody's perspective is special onto them. And so if we're in that conversation, it helps us to connect in other ways, which is exactly what Jarvis's book has done. You know, it's brought people from all over Germany. I can't believe that you do not know how tickled I am that you're like joining us from all the way from Germany. That's so crazy to me. And Faye from Mexico. I can't, like, I'm so like, that proves to me how energy moves, and like how people connect to each other. And so like that's part of what NU Builds Dialogue is, to share that energy, those experiences and perspectives, to keep the conversation going. Jermaine always says that it's always about a conversation. And it is, because it brings us closer together, helps solve problems and talk things out. So
And then,
yeah,
and we just had another author speak last week. Annie, she just shared in the chat about Call Me American. Annie, you want to share a little bit about that experience from last weekend?
Sure. Abdi Iftin, he was also featured on NPR. It was called Abdi and the Golden Ticket. Basically, he grew up in Somalia, and he ended up winning the lottery to come to the US, but that was the first part of his struggle, because the US apparently doesn't recognize the Somali passport. So he had to figure out how to get all this paperwork when it didn't actually exist. And just aside from all of that, he grew up in a war-torn country, and he was, 7 years old, trying to get water from his family, dodging bullets literally to keep them alive. And they turned it into a game, and it's just like an amazing, his life is amazing. He now lives in Maine, and I think everyone should read it. I told Tamara and Jermaine that I feel like this book is a part of me, and if people don't find it interesting, I feel like they don't find me interesting.
So yeah, and we have our that was not a professional recording thing. We had him on Zoom. We wanted to have more of a one-on-one kind of engagement dialogue. We did end up recording it, and then I just wanted to get Amy's okay to share that. But it was just him speaking a little bit about his experience, and Annie had shared some questions, and he answered that. But like Tamara mentioned, like we've done this several times, and it's always to try to use specific content to spark dialogue about topics that may be either polarizing, or so we use for example, we use Zootopia, which is a cartoon, and it talks about abuse of power and racism in a way that kids don't even understand, but they can talk about the movie, and it touches upon some of those concepts and some of those conversations in a way. So if you watch Zootopia, you'll watch with a whole new lens, because it does talk about abuse of power and racism and some elements that are society, some of the society ilk. So and we use those type of things to talk about things in society and engage in dialogue. Yes, Tenzin, you had a question.
I was thinking maybe I share a story from a prisoner who also wrote something relating back to what Jarvis said. When I understood Jarvis correctly, he said he doesn't write for people outside. He writes for himself, and he must be honest. And actually, I think this is really the key point. I had a prisoner who was 40 years in prison for bank robbery. He did different bank robberies. And so they want to put him in prison forever. There's a German law. But then he found another prisoner who had a transformation. And he asked him, how was you able to transform? And he said, you must write your life down in a book for yourself, but you must be brutal honest. Otherwise, it will not work. But if you are brutal honest and write brutal honest down, how you became what you are, how this all developed, then you will understand yourself, and then you can free yourself from the chains which brought you into the prison. So he did. He actually wrote 1,800 pages. And then he saw how he deceived himself, how he made things nicer. And he went back to the pages, crossed it out, and wrote it anew to be brutally honest. And at the end, he understood his pattern. His pattern was he was not beloved by his father. And he recognized when he invites people and is generous, he gets friends because he is generous, but he didn't have enough money to invite friends to get him as friends because of generosity. So he actually wanted to be loved and did all the bank robbery for the money to invite people to be his friends. You know, this was his pattern. When he recognized it, he understood it. He got out of the prison. Now imagine what he did. He found a woman. She wrote down all the pages on a typewriter, 1,200 at the end, because he did it by handwriting. And so she knew everything about him. Now, recently he met me because he really did the crimes. I mean, he did the crimes. And then people asked him to publish the book. And he said, no, I cannot do this because I harm people. And it's not good to publish the book based on their suffering. Recently, I met him and he said, do you know what I did with the book or with the pages? I burned them all because they did their work. And I found it so inspiring. And basically, this relates back to what Jarvis said. He must write for himself and must be brutal honest. And then it helps him. And this approach helps everybody else. So I wanted to share this with you. Maybe it's useful. Thank you for listening.
Wow.
That was just fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. All right. Thank you all for joining. Daniel, again, thank you for connecting us. Jarvis has that open invite. So anytime he calls you and wants to speak, just let us know.
You got it.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Have a great night. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great gift to be able to chat with Jarvis too.
Absolutely. It's always an honor to have him on. So thank you.
Yeah.